Marcus Chun had never imagined that his morning jog through the Terran Embassy gardens would end with him bleeding out on alien soil, but the universe had a way of making the impossible routine. The plasma bolt that caught him in the shoulder sent him spinning into the crystalline fountain, his blood mixing with the prismatic water that the Zephyrian nobles considered sacred. The attack came without warning. One moment he was enjoying the triple sunrise over the capital city of Veltar, watching the three suns paint the sky in shades of gold, crimson, and deep violet. The next, the peaceful morning shattered into chaos as masked figures in black tactical gear stormed the embassy grounds. Marcus was just a trade attaché, a mid-level diplomat whose biggest concern had been negotiating grain shipments between Earth and the Zephyrian Commonwealth. He wasn't trained for combat, wasn't prepared for the sight of Ambassador Harrison's head exploding in a shower of gore and sparks from an energy weapon. He wasn't ready for the way his fellow humans screamed as they were cut down like wheat before the harvester. But humans had a peculiar trait that the galaxy was still learning about. They didn't stay down when logic dictated they should. The assassins moved through the embassy with mechanical precision, their weapons humming with lethal energy. Marcus recognized the gear, military-grade Corvin assault suits, the kind used by elite mercenary units. Whoever had hired them had deep pockets and deeper hatred for the growing human-Zephyrian alliance. As Marcus pressed his hand against the smoking wound at his shoulder, he heard something that made his blood run colder than the Zephyrian morning air. Screaming. Not the screams of his dying colleagues, but something else entirely. Young voices, terrified, and calling out in the melodic language of the Zephyrian royal family. The children. The royal children were visiting the embassy today. Princess Lyralii and Prince Theron, aged 12 and 14 respectively, had come for a cultural exchange program. They were supposed to spend the morning learning about human art and literature, maybe sharing some of Earth's music with their Zephyrian peers. Instead, they were trapped in the embassy's east wing while killers hunted them down. Marcus looked at his bleeding shoulder, then at the bodies of his friends and colleagues scattered across the marble floor. Every rational part of his mind screamed at him to run, to find a way out, to save himself. The embassy's security systems were down, the guards were dead, and he was just one man with a hole in his shoulder and no weapons training. But those were children screaming. Human children, Zephyrian children, it didn't matter. They were young, they were afraid, and they needed help. Marcus Chun, trade attaché and part-time amateur marathon runner, did something that would echo through galactic history. He didn't run away from the danger. He ran toward it. The embassy's east wing was a maze of interconnected chambers designed for diplomatic meetings and cultural exchanges. Under normal circumstances, it was a place of learning and wonder. Now, it was a killing ground, filled with the acrid smell of ozone from energy weapons and the metallic scent of spilled blood. Marcus moved through the corridors with the desperate efficiency of a man who had nothing left to lose. His shoulder throbbed with each heartbeat, his diplomatic jacket torn and stained with his own blood, but he pressed forward. The screaming was getting closer, mixed now with the harsh voices of the assassins as they closed in on their targets. He found them in the Cultural Center's main hall, a vast circular chamber with walls that displayed shifting holographic murals of both human and Zephyrian art. The children huddled behind an overturned table while three assassins advanced on them with methodical patience. Princess Lyralii was trying to shield her younger brother with her own body, her normally perfect royal composure cracked by terror. Prince Theron clutched a ceremonial knife that looked more decorative than functional, his hands shaking as he pointed it at their attackers. The assassins were taking their time, savoring the moment. Marcus could hear them talking in harsh whispers, debating whether to make it quick or send a message to the Zephyrian crown about the cost of allying with humans. Marcus Chun was not a soldier. He was not a hero. He was a bureaucrat who helped negotiate trade agreements and whose idea of excitement was finding a new coffee shop. But when he saw those children facing death, something primal awakened in his chest. something that his ancestors had carried through ice ages and wars, through plagues and famines, through every dark chapter in humanity's bloody history. The refusal to let innocence die while he still drew breath. He didn't announce himself with a battle cry or dramatic declaration. He simply acted. The first assassin didn't see him coming until Marcus's full weight slammed into his back, sending them both crashing into the holographic display wall. The impact sent lightning through Marcus's wounded shoulder, but he ignored the pain as he grappled for the assassin's weapon. The energy rifle clattered across the floor as they fought. Marcus had never been in a real fight in his life, but desperation made him vicious. He fought like a cornered animal, using teeth and nails and everything his human evolution had given him to survive. The second assassin spun toward the commotion, raising his weapon to end the struggle. That's when he learned something about human reflexes that the galaxy's military academies were still trying to quantify. Marcus rolled, grabbing the fallen energy rifle and firing in one fluid motion. The bolt took the second assassin's center mass, burning through his tactical armor like paper. The smell of cooked flesh filled the air as the body hit the ground. The third assassin had time to process what was happening. Time to aim. Time to fire. Marcus threw himself in front of the children as the plasma bolt seared through the air. It caught him in the chest, burning through his jacket and into the muscle beneath. The impact knocked him backward, his vision going white with pain, but he stayed on his feet. He stayed on his feet, and he kept fighting. The energy rifle in his hand spoke again, and again, until the third assassin was nothing more than a smoking ruin on the chamber floor. Only then did Marcus allow himself to collapse, his knees hitting the marble with a sound like breaking bones. Princess Lyralii stared at him with eyes the color of winter sky, her perfect features streaked with tears. In her language, she whispered something that the translation device in his ear rendered as, "Why? Why did you do this for us?" Marcus coughed, tasting blood. "Because you're kids," he said simply, "and kids don't deserve to die because adults can't figure out how to get along." The princess looked at him for a long moment, then at the blood pooling beneath him from his two wounds. Without hesitation, she tore strips from her royal gown, fabric worth more than most beings saw in a lifetime, and began pressing them against his injuries. "You saved us," she said, her young hands steady despite the terror she had just endured. "You bled for us. By the laws of my people, you are now under the protection of House Velmore. No harm will come to you while breath remains in my body." Marcus wanted to tell her that it was unnecessary, that he was just doing what anyone would do. But the words wouldn't come. His vision was darkening, his strength flowing out of him with his blood. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness took him was the princess's face, set with a determination that seemed far too mature for her 12 years. When the Zephyrian Royal Guard finally arrived, alerted by the embassy's delayed distress signal, they found a scene that would be remembered in their culture for generations. 3 dead assassins, their advanced weaponry no match for desperate human courage. 2 royal children, alive and unharmed. And 1 bleeding human who had thrown away his own safety to protect strangers from another world. But Marcus Chen's story was just beginning. The royal physician who treated him was Dr. Kessare, a being whose species had been studying human biology for decades without truly understanding it. As she worked to repair the damage to his shoulder and chest, she found herself marveling at what she discovered. Humans, she noted in her medical logs, healed differently than any species she had encountered. Their bodies didn't just repair damage. They adapted to it, became stronger in the broken places. But more than that, their psychological response to trauma was unique. Where other species became more cautious after injury, humans often became more determined. Marcus Chun had been dying when they brought him to her medical bay. His blood pressure had dropped to dangerous levels, his body going into shock from blood loss and trauma. By all rights, he should have been grateful just to survive. Instead, as consciousness returned to him 3 days later, his first words were, "Are the children safe?" Dr. Kesare had seen many patients recover from serious injuries. She had never seen one whose first concern was for others rather than themselves. When she told him that Princess Larelii and Prince Theron were unharmed, Marcus Chun smiled and went back to sleep as if he could finally rest knowing his mission was complete. But rest was not what the universe had planned for him. The attack on the Terran embassy sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian Commonwealth. Not because humans had died, though that was tragedy enough, but because someone had dared to strike at the royal children. In Zephyrian culture, harming the young was the ultimate taboo, a crime that demanded blood vengeance. Within hours, the Royal Intelligence Service had identified the attackers as members of the Corvin Supremacy, a radical faction opposed to any alliance between their empire and the lesser species of the galaxy. The Corvins had hired mercenaries to eliminate the royal children, hoping to blame the deaths on human incompetence and shatter the growing friendship between their peoples. They had not counted on Marcus Chun. In the royal palace, Queen Velnara received the reports with the kind of cold fury that had made her house feared throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrians were an ancient race, their civilization built on honor, duty, and the absolute sanctity of their young. Someone had tried to murder her children, and only the sacrifice of a single human had prevented it. This demanded a response. Queen Velnara was not like the fairy tale queens of human stories. She stood nearly 8 feet tall, her skin the color of polished silver, her eyes burning with an inner light that spoke of genetic modifications made millennia ago. She was beautiful in the way that a sword was beautiful, elegant, deadly, and absolutely without compromise. When Princess Larelii requested an audience with her mother, still wearing the torn dress stained with Marcus Chen's blood, the queen listened to her daughter's account with growing amazement. He threw himself between us and the plasma fire, Larelii reported, her voice steady but her hand still trembling slightly. He was already wounded, already bleeding, but he didn't hesitate. He stood between death and us, and he smiled while he did it. The human smile? Queen Velnara asked, her translator struggling with the concept. Yes, mother. As if protecting us was worth dying for. As if there was no other choice he could make. The queen was silent for a long time, processing this information. She had dealt with humans before, found them to be clever traders and adequate diplomats. They were weak by galactic standards, their lifespans brief, their technology still primitive compared to the great powers. But this was something different. This was something that spoke to the deepest traditions of her people. Where is the human now? She asked finally. In the medical wing, mother. Dr. Kesare says he will live, but the injuries were severe. He may never fully recover. Queen Velnara stood, her full height casting shadows across the throne room. Then, we shall ensure he has the best care the Commonwealth can provide. And, when he is well enough, I will speak with him myself. Mother, Princess Larelii said carefully, there is something else. I spoke the ritual words. I claimed him under House Velmore protection. The queen's silver eyes widened slightly. The protection of a royal house was not something given lightly, even by a princess. It bound the royal family to defend the protected individual with their very lives, made them part of the extended royal household. It was an honor that had been bestowed perhaps a dozen times in the past millennium. You were within your rights, the queen said finally. And, given the circumstances, I believe you chose wisely. This Marcus Chun has proven himself worthy of our protection. But such a bond carries obligations on both sides. I understand, mother. Do you? Because if Dr. Kesare is correct, this human will recover from his injuries. And, when he does, he will be our responsibility. Our ally. What is the human word? Our friend. Princess Lyralii smiled for the first time since the attack. Yes, mother. Our friend. But the queen was already thinking beyond friendship. The Corvin attack had been a declaration of war, even if it was not yet acknowledged as such. The Commonwealth would need allies in the dark times ahead. And perhaps, just perhaps, they had found an unexpected one in the strange, stubborn species from a small blue world called Earth. Marcus Chun slept peacefully in his medical bed, unaware that his simple act of courage had set in motion events that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Unaware that the Queen of the Zephyrian Commonwealth was planning something that had never been attempted in the long history of her people. Unaware that when he woke up, he would no longer be just a trade attaché from Earth. He would be something entirely new. The days passed slowly in the medical wing. Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness, his body fighting to repair the damage done by Corvin energy weapons. When he was awake, he found himself visited by beings he had only seen in diplomatic photographs before. Prince Theron came first, carrying a datapad filled with human music that he had been studying before the attack. The 14-year-old royal seemed older now, marked by the experience of facing death and being saved by a stranger's sacrifice. "I wanted to thank you," the prince said in carefully pronounced English, "and to ask you about this music. Bach, you call him? The mathematics of his compositions are beautiful." Marcus smiled weakly. "You like classical music?" "I like the patterns," Theron replied. "They remind me of our own mathematical songs, but different, more emotional. Is that the right word?" "That's exactly the right word," Marcus said, and they spent the next hour discussing the intersection of music and mathematics while nurses monitored his vital signs. Princess Lyrelii visited every day, sometimes bringing books from the embassy that had survived the attack, sometimes just sitting quietly while Marcus slept. She was studying human culture with the intensity of a scholar, preparing for something she never quite explained. Dr. Kesare was fascinated by his recovery. "Your species is remarkable," she told him one morning as she checked his wounds. "These injuries should have left permanent damage. Instead, your body is rebuilding itself stronger than before." "Humans are stubborn that way," Marcus replied. "We don't know when to quit." "Is that what you call it? Stubbornness?" The doctor's forearms moved with practiced efficiency as she updated his medical charts. "My research suggests it might be something more fundamental. An evolutionary trait that served your species well on your dangerous homeworld." Marcus thought about that as he stared out the window at the alien skyline. Earth was dangerous, it was true, but no more dangerous than any world that produced intelligent life. The difference was how humans responded to danger. They didn't run from it. They adapted to it. They overcame it. On the 7th day of his recovery, Queen Velnara herself came to visit. Marcus had been expecting someone impressive. The reports about the Zephyrian Queen spoke of her intelligence, her political acumen, her role in building the Commonwealth into one of the galaxy's major powers. What he hadn't expected was the sheer physical presence of her. She filled the doorway like a silver statue come to life, her movements flowing with predatory grace. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that made the walls resonate. "Marcus Chun of Earth," she said, the translation somehow carrying formal weight. "My daughter tells me you saved her life. I did what anyone would do, Your Majesty." The Queen's eyes, burning silver orbs that seemed to look directly into his soul, narrowed slightly. "No, you did what a human would do. My intelligence report suggests that most species would have fled, sought their own safety. You chose to fight impossible odds to protect children who were not even your own species." Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his hospital bed. They were kids. Kids in danger. That's all that mattered. All that mattered. The Queen repeated slowly. "Yes, I think I understand. Tell me, Marcus Chin, what do you know of Zephyrian law?" "Not much, I'm afraid. Trade regulations, mostly." "Then, let me educate you. When someone risks their life to save a member of the royal family, they earn a debt that cannot be repaid with mere gratitude. You have shed your blood for my children. By our oldest laws, this makes you family." Marcus blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" Queen Velnara smiled, and it was like watching sunrise over an alien world. "My daughter claimed you under house protection, as is her right. But I'm going further. I am claiming you as a member of House Velmore itself, adopted into our bloodline, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Your Majesty, I don't understand. I'm just a trade attaché. I'm not royal material. Royalty is not about bloodline, Marcus Chun. It is about service, about sacrifice, about standing between danger and those who cannot protect themselves. The queen moved closer to his bed, her presence somehow both comforting and terrifying. You have already proven yourself to be more royal than beings born to the title. Marcus stared at her, trying to process what was happening. What would this mean exactly? It means you would become Prince Marcus of House Velmore, with all that title entails. You would have lands, responsibilities, a role in the Commonwealth's future. You would be my son-in-law as well as blood. In-law. The queen's smile became something else entirely, something that made Marcus's heart race despite his injuries. My daughter is 12, Marcus Chun, but she will not always be 12. And she has already decided that the human who bled for her should be her husband when she comes of age. The medical equipment around Marcus's bed began beeping frantically as his heart rate spiked. She decided what now? Zephyrian females choose their own mates, according to their own judgment. Lyralii has chosen you. The fact that you are from another species is unusual, but not forbidden by our laws. The fact that you are not noble-born is irrelevant, since I am making you noble-born. Marcus felt like the universe was spinning around him. Your Majesty, I'm honored, truly, but I can't just... I barely know your daughter. And I'm not even sure this is legal under human law, or Earth law, or... You have 5 years to get to know her, the Queen said calmly. And Earth law does not supersede Zephyrian law within our territory. You saved our children, Marcus Chun. Now we claim you as our own. The Queen turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. Oh, and Marcus? The Corvin Supremacy believes they can strike at my family without consequence. They're about to learn otherwise. When you are recovered, you will be part of that lesson. As the Queen's footsteps faded down the corridor, Marcus Chun lay in his hospital bed and wondered what the hell had just happened to his life. He had come to the Zephyrian homeworld to negotiate grain shipments. Now, apparently, he was going to be a prince and possibly go to war. The human capacity for adaptation was about to be tested in ways the galaxy had never imagined. Recovery from energy weapon wounds was supposed to take weeks, according to every medical database in the Commonwealth. Marcus Chun was walking around the Royal Medical Wing after 10 days, much to Dr. Kesaray's amazement and concern. You should be bettered in for at least another week, she protested as Marcus performed his morning exercises, lifting weights that would have challenged him before his injury. Your tissue regeneration is proceeding at an impossible rate. Feels fine to me, Marcus replied, though he could feel the tight pull of new scar tissue across his chest and shoulder. Actually, I feel better than I did before the attack. This was true, though he couldn't explain why. The wounds had healed with unusual speed, leaving behind scars that seemed to have made the surrounding muscle stronger rather than weaker. More concerning was his stamina. He could run farther, lift more, and think more clearly than he ever had in his life. Dr. Kesaray made notes on her datapad with all 4 hands. I'm documenting everything for the medical archives. If we can understand how human recovery works, it could revolutionize treatment for other species. Happy to help science, Marcus said, though he suspected that his rapid healing had less to do with human biology and more to do with the strange energy he sometimes felt coursing through his veins. Energy that seemed to respond to his emotions, growing stronger when he thought about protecting others. The palace was a maze of crystalline corridors and soaring chambers that defied gravity. Marcus had been given quarters in the royal wing, rooms that were larger than his entire apartment back on Earth. The walls displayed shifting patterns of light that responded to his presence, and the furniture adjusted itself to accommodate his human physiology. It was beautiful, alien, and completely overwhelming. You look lost, Princess Lyralii observed, finding him standing in his sitting room and staring out the massive windows at the triple sunset. She had grown in the weeks since the attack, though not in height. There was something in her bearing now, a confidence that spoke of someone who had looked death in the face and found it wanting. She still dressed in the flowing robes of royal fashion, but now she wore a ceremonial blade at her side, a curved weapon that looked both ancient and deadly. "I feel lost," Marcus admitted. "A month ago, I was negotiating shipping manifests. Now I'm apparently a prince-in-waiting in an alien royal family. It's a bit of an adjustment." Lyralii moved to stand beside him at the window, her silver skin catching the light from the three suns. "Do you regret it? Saving us?" "No," Marcus said immediately. "Never that. I just don't understand why saving you has to mean all this." He gestured around the luxurious quarters. "Because," Lyralii said patiently, "in our culture, actions have consequences. Noble actions create noble obligations. You acted like a prince, so you have become one. And the marriage thing?" Lyralii's cheeks darkened with what Marcus had learned was the Zephyrian equivalent of a blush. "That is more complicated." She was quiet for a long moment, watching the light play across the alien cityscape below. "My mother thinks I'm too young to make such decisions. She may be right, but when I saw you standing over us, bleeding and refusing to fall down, I knew something." "What did you know?" "That I wanted to be the kind of person who could inspire such loyalty. That I wanted to be worthy of the sacrifice you made." She turned to look at him with those winter sky eyes. "And that I wanted you to stay with us, to be part of our family." Marriage seemed like the most permanent way to ensure that. Marcus felt his chest tighten with something that wasn't entirely comfortable. "Lurale, I'm honored, truly. But you're 12 years old. You don't know what you'll want when you're older." "I know what I want now," she said with the absolute certainty that only children could possess. "And I know that you are the bravest person I have ever met. The rest, we have time to figure out." Before Marcus could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the palace. Red light pulsed along the corridors, and the pleasant hum of the building's systems shifted to something urgent and discordant. A holographic display materialized in the center of the room, showing Queen Velnara's face. Her expression was grim, her silver eyes burning with controlled fury. "All members of House Velmore, report to the war room immediately," the Queen announced. "We have received the Corvin response to our diplomatic protests." Marcus looked at Lyralii. "Does that include me?" "You are House Velmore now," she replied, but her voice was tight with apprehension. "Whatever the Corvins have done, it must be serious for Mother to activate the war protocols." The war room was deep in the heart of the palace, behind security barriers that scanned for everything from weapons to hostile thoughts. Marcus had never seen anything like it. A vast circular chamber with holographic displays showing real-time information from across the galaxy. Star charts, fleet positions, intelligence reports, all flowing in a constant stream of data that would have overwhelmed human senses if not for the translation implants that somehow made it all comprehensible. Queen Velnara stood at the center of it all, like a silver goddess of war. Prince Theron was already there, his young face pale but determined. Other members of the royal household filled the remaining positions: military advisors, intelligence chiefs, diplomatic corps. And now Marcus Chun, trade attaché turned prince, standing among the decision-makers of an interstellar empire. "The situation is as follows," Queen Velnara announced without preamble. 6 hours ago, Corvin forces attacked 3 Commonwealth border worlds simultaneously. The colonies on Zirian Prime, Talgesh, and New Harmony have been occupied. Civilian casualties are estimated in the millions. The holographic displays shifted to show images that made Marcus's stomach clench. Cities burning under alien skies. Ships fleeing through space, pursued by sleek Corvin destroyers. Beings running through streets as armored soldiers gunned them down without discrimination. The attacks were coordinated with our intelligence, suggesting they began planning this assault immediately after the embassy incident, the Queen continued. They are treating our diplomatic protests as a declaration of weakness rather than an attempt at peaceful resolution. General Kesron, the Queen's military advisor, stepped forward. His species was built for war, 8 feet of armored hide and razor-sharp claws, with 4 arms that could wield weapons with terrifying precision. Your Majesty, our border fleets are already moving to intercept. We can retake the occupied worlds, but it will cost us. What kind of cost? Prince Theron asked, his young voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Half our fleet, maybe more, the general replied grimly. The Corvins have been building their military for decades, while we focused on trade and diplomacy. They have more ships, better weapons, and no concern for civilian casualties. Queen Velnara was silent for a long moment, processing the tactical displays that surrounded her. And our allies? The Terran Federation has offered support, but their fleet is small and their technology is generations behind ours, another advisor reported. The Rigelian Republic is staying neutral. The Andromedan Collective is considering the situation. In other words, the Queen said coldly, "We stand alone." Marcus found himself speaking before he realized it. Not necessarily. Every head in the room turned toward him. He could feel their attention like a physical weight. These beings who commanded fleets and controlled the fates of worlds, all focusing on a human who shouldn't have been there at all. "You have something to contribute, Prince Marcus?" Queen Velnara asked, and her use of his new title made him straighten unconsciously. "I know humans," Marcus said, his mind racing as he worked through an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. "I know how we think, how we fight, and I know that we don't like bullies." "The human fleet is tiny," General Kesron objected. 15 ships, none larger than a light cruiser. What could they possibly contribute to a conflict of this magnitude? Marcus smiled, and there was something in that expression that made several of the aliens step back unconsciously. "It's not about the ships, General. It's about what those ships represent." He moved to the central display, his hands somehow knowing how to interface with the alien controls. The star chart shifted, zooming in on the border regions where fighting was already breaking out. "The Corvins just made a critical mistake," Marcus explained. "They attacked civilian targets without provocation. They're betting that the galaxy will see this as a local conflict between the Commonwealth and the Empire, something that doesn't concern anyone else." "Is that not accurate?" Prince Theron asked. "No," Marcus said firmly, "because 3 of those colonies had significant human populations. New Harmony was actually founded jointly by human and Zephyrian settlers. When word of this gets back to Earth," understanding dawned on Queen Velnara's face, "your people will consider this an attack on humanity itself." "More than that," Marcus replied. "They'll see it as a genocide. Humans have a very specific response to genocide, Your Majesty. We don't just fight back. We make sure it never happens again." He manipulated the display again, bringing up information about Earth's industrial capacity, population centers, military academies. "You're thinking in terms of ships and weapons. But humans don't win wars with superior technology. We win them with superior determination." "Explain," the Queen commanded. Marcus took a deep breath. "The human military doctrine isn't based on having the biggest fleet or the best weapons. It's based on making any attack against us so costly that it's not worth attempting. Every human knows that if one of our colonies falls, every other human in the galaxy is at risk. So when humans go to war, we go to war completely." The displays around the room shifted as Marcus accessed databases he shouldn't have been able to reach, information about human psychology and military history flowing across the screens. "The Corvins are expecting a conventional response," he continued. "Fleet actions, territorial disputes, negotiated settlements. They're not expecting 40 billion humans to decide that the Corvin Empire represents an existential threat to human survival." General Kesron's 4 eyes widened as he processed the implications. "You're suggesting that Earth would mobilize their entire population for this conflict?" "I'm not suggesting it," Marcus said. "I'm guaranteeing it. And once humans decide that you're their enemy, they don't stop until you're not a threat anymore. Ask the Rigelians about the Titan War if you want to know what that looks like." The Titan War had been humanity's introduction to galactic politics. A conflict that should have ended in human extinction had instead resulted in the complete dismantling of the Regellian slave trade and the establishment of humanity as a force to be respected in galactic affairs. But how does this help us immediately? Princess Lyralii asked. The human fleet is still small, and it will take time for them to mobilize their full resources. Marcus smiled again, and this time the expression was genuinely warm. Because, Your Highness, humans are very good at making friends when they need to. And, right now, Earth needs allies who can help them project power across the galaxy. He gestured to the tactical displays showing Commonwealth fleet positions. You have the ships and the technology. We have the population and the industrial base. Together, we could build something that would make the Corvins think twice about threatening anyone. An alliance, Queen Velnara said slowly. A true military alliance, not just a trade agreement. More than that, Marcus replied. A partnership. Humans learn fast, Your Majesty. Give us access to your technology, your shipyards, your tactical knowledge, and we'll give you something the Corvins can't match. Which is... Marcus looked around the room at the assembled alien leaders, these beings who had built a civilization that spanned star systems and commanded the respect of the galaxy. We'll give you humans, and humans don't know how to quit. The war room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Queen stood motionless for long minutes, her silver eyes reflecting calculations that would reshape the political landscape of the galaxy. Prince Marcus, she said finally, I believe your first official act as a member of this house will be to negotiate the terms of this alliance. Your Majesty, you will return to Earth as our official ambassador. You will present them with full intelligence about the Corvin attacks and our military capabilities. And you will return with an answer about how far humanity is willing to go to defend their people. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a physical force. Your Majesty, I'm not a military strategist or a diplomat. I don't know if I'm qualified for something this important. Queen Velnara moved to stand before him, her imposing height making him feel small and young. But when she spoke, her voice carried warmth as well as authority. You are the human who threw himself between death and my children. You are the man who convinced a room full of military professionals that a species could change the outcome of a galactic war. And you are now a prince of House Velmore, with all the authority that title carries. She paused. More than that, you understand both our peoples in a way that no one else can. If anyone can forge this alliance, it is you. Marcus straightened, feeling something shift inside him. The uncertain trade attaché was gone, replaced by someone who had responsibilities that extended across star systems. What do I tell them about the marriage arrangement? He asked, causing several aliens to make sounds that might have been laughter. You tell them the truth, Princess Lyralii said, stepping forward to stand beside her mother. That you saved the life of a Zephyrian princess, and she has decided to keep you. And if Earth objects to one of their citizens being claimed by an alien royal family? Queen Velnara smiled, and it was the expression of someone who had been planning for this possibility. Then you tell them that Prince Marcus of House Velmore is no longer just a human citizen. He is a member of the Zephyrian Commonwealth, with all the diplomatic immunities and political protections that entails. And if they demand I choose between Earth and the Commonwealth, then you tell them, the Queen said softly, that the human who bled for our children has earned the right to belong to both worlds. The preparations for Marcus's return to Earth took 3 days. Those days were filled with briefings that left his head spinning with information about galactic politics, military capabilities, trade agreements, and diplomatic protocols. He learned about the Corvin Empire's history of expansion, their military doctrine, their contempt for what they considered lesser species. He also learned about the Commonwealth's capabilities, resources that dwarfed anything humanity had yet developed. Shipyards that could construct vessels the size of city blocks. Energy weapons that could crack planets. Defensive technologies that could shield entire star systems. And he learned about himself. The medical examinations that Dr. Kesare insisted on revealed changes that defied explanation. His muscle density had increased by 30%. His reflexes were now faster than baseline human norms. His brain showed activity patterns that suggested enhanced cognitive function. It's as if your body is adapting to the enhanced responsibilities, Dr. Kesare told him as she reviewed the test results. Your species' capacity for evolution is remarkable, but this is happening in real time rather than across generations. Is that normal? Nothing about humans appears to be normal, the doctor replied. But then, again, humans don't seem concerned with being normal. On the morning of his departure, Marcus stood in his quarters looking out at the alien cityscape, trying to process how completely his life had changed. A month ago, he had been a minor bureaucrat whose biggest responsibility was making sure grain shipments arrived on schedule. Now he was heading home to convince Earth to go to war. Having second thoughts? Princess Lyralii asked from the doorway. Third and fourth thoughts, Marcus admitted. I keep wondering if I'm the right person for this. She moved to stand beside him, her presence somehow both calming and energizing. Do you know what I wondered about after the attack? What? Whether you would have done the same thing if it had been Corvin children in danger. If the species didn't matter to you. Marcus considered the question seriously. Yes, he said finally. I would have. I know, Lyralii replied. That's why you're the right person for this. Because you don't see species when you see people in danger. You just see people. She handed him a small crystal pendant, its faceted surface catching the light from the triple suns. A communication device. It will let you reach me instantly, no matter where you are in the galaxy. Thank you. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the alien city wake up to another day. In a few hours, Marcus would board a Commonwealth vessel bound for Earth. He would carry with him intelligence about an enemy that threatened both their worlds and a proposal that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Marcus, Lyralii said quietly, when you speak to your people, remember something. What's that? You're not asking them to fight for the Commonwealth. You're asking them to fight for the idea that children should be safe, no matter what world they come from. Marcus nodded, feeling the truth of that settle into his bones. I'll remember. The ship that would carry him to Earth was called the Swift Current, a diplomatic vessel designed for speed rather than combat. Its captain was a grizzled Zephyrian officer named Veltarn who had been fighting pirates and smugglers for longer than Marcus had been alive. Your Highness, the captain said as Marcus boarded, using the title that still felt strange to hear. We should reach the Sol system in 4 days at maximum velocity. Thank you, Captain. And please, just Marcus is fine. Captain Veltarn smiled, showing teeth that could have belonged to a predator. As you wish, Prince Marcus. Though you might want to get used to the formality. Where we're going, that title carries weight. As the swift current lifted away from the Zephyrian homeworld, Marcus watched the planet shrink to a point of light through the ship's viewports. He was carrying hopes and fears, treaties and intelligence reports, the future of 2 civilizations in his diplomatic pouch. But more than that, he was carrying something else. The knowledge that when children were threatened, someone had to stand between them and the darkness. And that humans, despite all their flaws and limitations, had never learned to walk away from that responsibility. The Corvin Empire was about to learn what happened when you threatened a species that didn't know how to quit. And Marcus Chund, trade attaché turned prince, was going to be the one to teach them the Sol system looked smaller than Marcus remembered. After weeks surrounded by the impossible architecture of alien worlds, the sight of Earth hanging in the void like a blue marble seemed almost quaint, almost fragile. Captain Veltarn guided the swift current through the orbital traffic with the practiced ease of someone who had navigated stranger waters than Earth's cluttered near space. Human vessels moved around them like curious fish, their designs crude, but functional compared to the sleek lines of Commonwealth technology. Impressive for a young species, the captain observed as they watched a massive cargo hauler lumber past, its hull scarred by countless trips between the colonies. Your people build things to last. We have to, Marcus replied, studying the familiar configurations of human ships with new eyes. We don't have the luxury of advanced materials or energy shields. When we build something, it has to work in the worst possible conditions with the minimum possible maintenance. It was a philosophy that extended beyond shipbuilding. He was beginning to realize. Humanity had learned to thrive in environments that would have killed other species, not through superior technology, but through superior stubbornness. The communication from Earth traffic control crackled through the ship's speakers with a kind of bureaucratic formality that Marcus had once found comforting. Now it seemed almost primitive compared to the instant, thought-level communication systems used in Commonwealth space. Unknown vessel, this is Earth Control. Please identify yourself and state your business in Sol space. Captain Veltarn looked to Marcus, deferring to his local knowledge. Marcus activated the communication array with hands that were steadier than he felt. Earth Control, this is Marcus Chun aboard the Zephyrian diplomatic vessel Swift Current, requesting priority clearance for landing at the United Nations Alien Relations Complex in Geneva. There was a pause. Marcus could imagine the chaos his words had just caused in the traffic control center. Human citizens didn't typically arrive in alien ships with requests for diplomatic clearance. Marcus Chun, can you verify your identity? According to our records, you're listed as missing, presumed dead in the attack on the Zephyrian embassy. I'm very much alive, Control, and I need to speak with Director Harrison immediately. Tell her that the situation with the Corvins has escalated beyond anything we discussed in the embassy briefings. Another pause, longer this time. Stand by, Swift Current. We're clearing a priority approach vector. Be advised that you'll have a full security escort to the landing facility. As promised, 6 human fighters formed up around the Swift Current as it descended through Earth's atmosphere. The pilots were good, Marcus noted with professional appreciation, maintaining formation despite the obvious curiosity about the alien vessel they were escorting. The landing facility in Geneva was humanity's primary interface with galactic civilization, a sprawling complex of landing pads, diplomatic facilities, and research centers that had grown far beyond its original design. As the Swift Current settled onto the designated pad, Marcus could see crowds of officials, security personnel, and what looked like every xenobiologist on Earth gathering behind the safety barriers. Well, Captain Veltarn observed, your people certainly seem interested in our arrival. They're about to be a lot more interested, Marcus replied grimly. Director Sarah Harrison was waiting for him at the bottom of the ship's ramp, flanked by enough security to stop a small invasion. She was a tall, severe woman in her 50s who had spent her career managing humanity's cautious integration into galactic politics. Marcus had worked under her for 3 years, but the woman who greeted him now seemed to be looking at a stranger. Marcus Chun, she said, her voice carefully neutral. When the embassy fell, we assumed. I know what you assumed, Marcus replied, accepting her formal handshake. And under normal circumstances, you would have been right. But circumstances have been anything but normal. Harrison's eyes took in his appearance with the trained observation of a career diplomat. The expensive clothes that were clearly of alien manufacture. The confident bearing that hadn't been there before. The small but unmistakable changes in his physical presence that spoke of genetic enhancement or medical intervention. You've changed, she said simply. Yes, Marcus agreed. We all have to change, Director, because the Corvins just declared war on humanity. The briefing room in the diplomatic complex was the same sterile, functional space where Marcus had attended countless meetings about trade regulations and cultural exchange programs. Now it felt like a war room, filled with officials whose responsibilities had just expanded far beyond anything they had trained for. Secretary of State Jennifer Walsh sat at the head of the table, her usually perfect composure showing cracks as she reviewed the intelligence reports Marcus had brought from the Commonwealth. General Patricia Stone, Chief of Space Operations, studied tactical displays with the focused intensity of someone trying to understand an enemy that outgunned her by orders of magnitude. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Secretary Walsh said. looking up from the reports. The Corvin Empire has attacked 3 Commonwealth border worlds, killing millions of civilians in the process. Among those civilians were approximately 200,000 human colonists. That's correct, Marcus confirmed. New Harmony alone had a human population of over 100,000. The Corvins made no distinction between human and Zephyrian civilians. And your assessment is that this represents a declaration of war against humanity, specifically? Marcus leaned forward, calling up the holographic displays that showed Corvin military doctrine and strategic planning. The Corvins don't make random attacks, Madam Secretary. Every move they make is calculated to achieve maximum political and psychological impact. They knew there were human populations on those worlds, and they targeted them specifically. General Stone spoke up from her position at the tactical display. What are we looking at in terms of immediate threat to Earth and the colonies? In the short term, minimal, Marcus replied. The Corvins are focused on their conflict with the Commonwealth. But if they succeed in defeating or fragmenting the Commonwealth, humanity becomes their next logical target. Because we're allied with the Zephyrians? Because we're expanding, Marcus said bluntly. Human colonies are spreading throughout this sector of the galaxy. We're making trade agreements, establishing diplomatic relations, claiming territory. From the Corvin perspective, we're exactly the kind of inferior species that needs to be brought under their control before we become a real threat. Director Harrison had been quiet throughout the briefing, but now she spoke up. Marcus, there's something we need to address. According to our intelligence, you didn't just survive the embassy attack. You were involved in defending the royal children. And there are reports that you've been adopted into the Zephyrian royal family. Marcus felt the weight of every gaze in the room. This was the moment he had been dreading, the point where his personal situation could undermine everything he was trying to accomplish. That's correct, he said simply. Which means your loyalty might be divided, General Stone observed, her tone carefully neutral. My loyalty is to the protection of innocent life, Marcus replied. Human, Zephyrian, or any other species that doesn't deserve to be slaughtered by Corvin supremacists. If you think that represents divided loyalty, then we have bigger problems than the Corvin Empire. Secretary Walsh held up a hand to forestall any angry responses. What exactly is your status with the Zephyrian royal family? Marcus took a deep breath. I am Prince Marcus of House Velmore, adopted son of Queen Velnura, and betrothed to Princess Lorelei as per Zephyrian law and custom. The silence that followed was deafening. You're engaged, Director Harrison said flatly. To an alien princess, who is 12 years old. Who will not be 12 years old forever, Marcus replied. And who, by Zephyrian law, has the right to choose her own husband when she comes of age. She chose me. I accepted the honor. General Stone leaned back in her chair. Jesus Christ, Marcus. Do you have any idea what the media is going to do with this story? I know what they'll do, Marcus said. They'll focus on the personal drama and miss the real issue, which is that the Corvin Empire just committed genocide against human civilians, and they're planning to do it again on a much larger scale. He stood up, moving to the main display and calling up images from the attacked worlds. The room fell silent as they watched the aftermath of Corvin brutality. Cities reduced to rubble, refugee camps filled with survivors, mass graves dug in what had been thriving colonial settlements. These people died because they had the misfortune to live on worlds that the Corvins wanted, Marcus said quietly. They died because the Corvins consider non-Corvin life to be disposable. And if we don't act now, if we don't stand with the Commonwealth against this threat, then every human colony in the galaxy is next. Secretary Walsh studied the images with the expression of someone trying to make an impossible decision. What exactly are you proposing? Full military alliance with the Zephyrian Commonwealth. Marcus replied without hesitation. Shared technology, joint operations, combined fleets. We help them defeat the Corvin Empire before it becomes powerful enough to threaten Earth directly. With what? General Stone demanded. Our entire space navy consists of 15 ships, none of which could stand up to a Corvin cruiser in single combat. What could we possibly offer in a conflict of this magnitude? Marcus smiled, and there was something in that expression that made several people in the room unconsciously straighten up. We offer them something they've never seen before, General. We offer them humans. He manipulated the display again, bringing up population figures, industrial capacity, educational statistics. The Commonwealth has better technology, but they've also become comfortable. They're used to solving problems through negotiation and compromise. They've forgotten what it's like to fight for survival. And we haven't, have we? Marcus challenged. When was the last time humanity faced an existential threat? When was the last time we had to choose between victory and extinction? The room fell quiet as the implications sank in. You're talking about total war, Director Harrison said slowly. I'm talking about the kind of war humanity is good at, Marcus replied. The kind where defeat isn't an option because defeat means the end of everything we've built. Secretary Walsh was quiet for a long time, studying the tactical displays and casualty reports. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of a decision that would reshape humanity's place in the galaxy. What would this alliance look like in practical terms? Marcus felt his heart rate increase, recognizing the shift in tone. She was no longer asking whether they should act, but how. Joint research and development programs to upgrade human technology, he began. Commonwealth shipyards building vessels designed specifically for human crews and tactics. Training exchanges to teach our people Commonwealth military doctrine while teaching them human strategies. And in exchange, human manpower and industrial capacity. The Commonwealth has a population of roughly 8 billion across dozens of worlds. Humanity has 40 billion people on Earth alone, with colonial populations that could be mobilized for military production. General Stone was studying the numbers with growing amazement. You're talking about the largest military mobilization in human history. I'm talking about the only kind of mobilization that will be sufficient, Marcus replied. The Corvins have been preparing for this conflict for decades. They have military superiority in every category except one, which is they've never fought humans before. Over the next 6 hours, Marcus laid out everything he had learned about Corvin military doctrine, Commonwealth capabilities, and the strategic situation throughout the galaxy. He shared intelligence about Corvin fleet movements, their political structure, their economic vulnerabilities. More importantly, he shared his understanding of what the conflict really meant. This isn't just about territory or resources, he explained as the briefing moved into its second session. This is about the future of galactic civilization. The Corvins believe that only their species deserves to exist as an independent force. Every other race should be either enslaved or exterminated. And you believe the Commonwealth can stop them. I believe humanity and the Commonwealth together can stop them, Marcus corrected. Separately, we're both vulnerable. The Commonwealth lacks the ruthlessness necessary for total war. Humanity lacks the technology and resources for interstellar conflict. But together we could build something that neither the Corvins nor anyone else would want to challenge, Secretary Walsh finished. A true alliance between equals. More than that, Marcus said, a partnership that could reshape how conflicts are resolved in the galaxy. No more genocides. No more species being wiped out because they're inconvenient to someone's expansion plans. The discussion that followed was intense, covering everything from constitutional law to military logistics. Could Earth legally commit to such an alliance? Did humanity have the industrial capacity to support a galactic war? What would be the long-term consequences of such deep integration with alien technology and culture? But underneath all the practical concerns was a deeper question, one that Marcus could see in the faces of everyone around the table. Was humanity ready to take its place as a major power in galactic affairs? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, The xenobiologist who had been quietly observing the briefing spoke up for the first time. "I've been studying the medical reports on Marcus," she said, causing everyone to turn toward her. "The changes in his physiology, the enhanced healing, the improved cognitive function. It's not just alien technology or medical intervention." "What is it?" Secretary Walsh asked. "Evolutionary pressure," Dr. Hayes replied. "Marcus's body is adapting in real time to the demands placed on it. His brain is rewiring itself to handle the complexity of interstellar politics. His muscles are rebuilding themselves for enhanced physical capability." She looked around the room with the excitement of a scientist who had made a breakthrough discovery. This is what happens when humans are placed in an environment that challenges them beyond their normal limitations. We don't just adapt, we evolve. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine as he understood the implications. "You're saying that the alliance wouldn't just be about military cooperation. I'm saying that extensive contact with Commonwealth technology and culture could accelerate human development by centuries," Dr. Hayes replied. "We could become something new, something better, or something no longer human." Director Harrison objected. "Is that necessarily a bad thing?" Marcus asked quietly. "If the choice is between remaining purely human and ensuring the survival of human civilization, which would you choose?" The room fell silent again, but this time the silence was different. This time it was the silence of people confronting a future they had never imagined. Secretary Walsh spoke first. "I need to brief the president. This decision is beyond anything I can authorize on my own." "How long do we have?" General Stone asked. Marcus checked the communication device that Princess Lyralii had given him, noting the urgent messages that had been accumulating during the briefing. "According to Commonwealth intelligence, the Corvins are massing for another assault, probably against the Commonwealth core worlds this time. We have days, maybe weeks, before the situation becomes irreversible. Then we'd better move quickly," Secretary Walsh said, standing up from the table. "Marcus, I want you to prepare a formal proposal for this alliance. Everything you've discussed here, in writing, with full documentation and supporting evidence." "Yes, ma'am." "And Marcus?" She paused at the door. "When you present this to the president, remember that you're asking us to bet the future of humanity on the word of people we've only known for a few years. Make sure your proposal is convincing." As the room emptied, Marcus found himself alone with Dr. Hayes. She approached him with the careful manner of a scientist studying a fascinating specimen. "May I ask you something personal?" she said. "Of course. Do you feel human anymore?" Marcus considered the question seriously. "I feel like what humans are supposed to become," he said finally. "Like what we could be if we stopped limiting ourselves to what we've always been." Dr. Hayes nodded slowly. "That's what I thought you'd say. And that's what scares me." "Why?" "Because you might be right. And if you are, then the Marcus Chun who left Earth a month ago is gone forever, replaced by something new." Marcus looked out the window at the familiar skyline of Geneva, at the world where he had been born and raised. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing," he said. "Maybe the old Marcus Chun couldn't have done what needs to be done." "And what needs to be done?" Marcus smiled, and for a moment Dr. Hayes could see the alien influence in his expression, the subtle changes that spoke of enhancement and evolution. "We need to teach the galaxy that humanity doesn't know how to quit," he said. "And we need to do it in a way that ensures nobody ever forgets the lesson." As night fell over Earth, Marcus Chun, Prince Marcus of House Velmore, began preparing the proposal that would either elevate humanity to galactic prominence or doom it to irrelevance. In the distance, the stars that had once seemed impossibly far away now felt like neighbors. And somewhere among those stars, Princess Lyralii was waiting for news that would determine whether their two species would face the future together or apart. The age of human isolation was ending. What would replace it remained to be seen. The Oval Office had seen many historic moments, but President Catherine Morrison suspected that none had carried quite the same implications as the proposal sitting on her desk. She had been reading Marcus Chen's report for 3 hours, cross-referencing it with intelligence briefings from every major agency, and the conclusion was always the same. Humanity stood at a crossroads that would define its future for generations. "Walk me through this again," she said to the assembled group. Marcus sat across from her desk, flanked by Secretary Walsh, Director Harrison, and General Stone. "You're asking me to commit Earth to a military alliance with an alien empire against another alien empire, based on the recommendation of a man who's been legally adopted into an alien royal family." "That's an oversimplification, Madam President," Marcus replied carefully, but not entirely inaccurate. President Morrison was a small woman in her early 60s who had earned her position through 30 years of careful political calculation. She was not given to dramatic gestures or emotional decisions. But the documents in front of her described a reality that required responses beyond normal political frameworks. "The Corvin Empire represents an existential threat to human expansion," she said, reading from the summary. "Their military doctrine calls for the elimination or subjugation of all non-Corvin species. They have already demonstrated their willingness to commit genocide against human civilians." "Correct. And your assessment is that the Zephyrian Commonwealth, despite their technological superiority, cannot defeat the Corvins without human assistance." "Also correct. The Commonwealth has better ships and weapons, but they lack the strategic mindset necessary for total war. They're still thinking in terms of limited objectives and negotiated settlements." President Morrison set down the report and studied Marcus with the attention of someone trying to understand a puzzle. "And you believe humans can provide that strategic mindset?" "I know we can," Marcus said with quiet confidence. "Because humans are the only species in the galaxy that has experience fighting for survival against overwhelming odds." "Explain." Marcus stood up, moving to the holographic display that had been installed for the briefing. With practiced efficiency, he called up images that showed the progression of human civilization. Ice ages survived, natural disasters overcome, wars fought, and won against impossible odds. Every other species in the galaxy achieved spaceflight through gradual technological development in relatively stable environments, he explained. Humanity achieved it despite living on a world that tried to kill us every few thousand years. The display showed Earth's violent geological history, the mass extinctions that had shaped human evolution, the climate changes that had forced constant adaptation. "We learned to think in terms of species survival because individual survival was never guaranteed," Marcus continued. "When humans go to war, we don't fight for territory or resources. We fight for the right to exist." General Stone leaned forward. "What does that mean in practical terms?" "It means that once humans commit to a conflict, we don't stop until the threat is eliminated," Marcus replied. "Not contained, not negotiated with, not deterred. Eliminated." The room fell quiet as the implications sank in. "You're talking about the complete destruction of the Corvin Empire," President Morrison said slowly. "I'm talking about ensuring that the Corvin Empire never again has the capability to threaten non-Corvin species," Marcus corrected. "That might mean destruction, or it might mean fundamental restructuring of their society. But it definitely means the end of Corvin supremacist ideology as a political force." Secretary Walsh spoke up. "And you believe the Commonwealth would support such an absolute objective?" Marcus smiled grimly. "The Commonwealth leadership is beginning to understand that this isn't the kind of conflict that ends with compromise. Queen Velnara has seen the intelligence reports from the border worlds. She knows what the Corvins are capable of." He manipulated the display again, showing real-time updates from the war zone. The images were stark. Entire cities reduced to radioactive craters, refugee fleets fleeing through space, Commonwealth forces falling back from system after system. "The Corvins aren't interested in territorial conquest," Marcus explained. "They're interested in species elimination. They see this war as an opportunity to solve what they call the Commonwealth problem once and for all. And if they succeed in fragmenting or destroying the Commonwealth, humanity becomes their next target, Marcus said bluntly. Our colonies are closer to Corvin space than Earth realizes. If they can establish forward bases in Commonwealth territory, they could reach Luna within 6 months. President Morrison studied the tactical displays with growing unease. What are you proposing in terms of specific commitments? Marcus had been preparing for this question for days. Phase 1 would be immediate technological and intelligence sharing. Commonwealth scientists working with human researchers to upgrade our industrial capacity and military technology. Phase 2, joint construction of a combined fleet. Commonwealth shipyards producing vessels designed specifically for human crews and tactics. We're looking at approximately 200 ships in the first wave, with production ramping up to 500 ships per year once the industrial infrastructure is in place. General Stone whistled softly. That's larger than any fleet in galactic history. It needs to be, Marcus replied. The Corvins have been building their military for decades. They currently field over 800 ships of the line, plus support vessels and planetary defense systems. We need numerical superiority to overcome their technological advantages. And Phase 3, President Morrison asked. Marcus hesitated for just a moment. Full integration of human and Commonwealth military forces. Joint command structure, shared logistics, coordinated strategy across all theaters of operation. You're talking about merging our military with an alien empire. I'm talking about creating something new, Marcus said. A military alliance that could serve as the foundation for a new form of galactic governance. One based on cooperation rather than conquest. The president was quiet for a long time, processing the magnitude of what was being proposed. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of historical decision. What would this cost us? Everything, Marcus said honestly. Our political isolation, our technological independence, our cultural purity. If we do this, humanity will never be the same. And if we don't, there might not be a humanity to change. The discussion that followed lasted through the night and into the next day. Constitutional scholars debated whether the president had the authority to commit to such an alliance. Military experts analyzed the technological requirements and strategic implications. Economists projected the cost of converting Earth's industrial base to support interstellar warfare. But the critical moment came when Dr. Hayes presented her analysis of the biological samples that Marcus had brought back from the Commonwealth. This isn't just about military alliance, she told the assembled officials. This is about the next stage of human evolution. She called up genetic analyses that showed the changes occurring in Marcus's DNA, modifications that enhanced everything from cognitive function to physical resilience. Exposure to Commonwealth biotechnology is triggering adaptive responses that would normally take thousands of years to develop. You're saying that working with the Commonwealth would make us better than human? General Stone asked. I'm saying it would make us more than human, Dr. Hayes corrected. Enhanced longevity, improved intelligence, increased physical capabilities. The potential benefits are beyond anything we've ever imagined. And the risks? The risk is that we become something our children won't recognize as human, Dr. Hayes admitted. But the alternative might be that we have no children at all. President Morrison stood at the window of the Oval Office, looking out at the city that had been the center of human governance for centuries. Soon, if Marcus's proposal was accepted, that governance would extend across the stars. Marcus, she said without turning around, I have one final question. Yes, Madam President. If we agree to this alliance, if we commit humanity to this path, will you remain loyal to Earth? Or will your primary allegiance be to your new family? Marcus considered the question carefully. My primary allegiance will be to the survival and prosperity of both species, Madam President. I can't separate human welfare from Commonwealth welfare anymore, because they're becoming the same thing. That's not exactly reassuring. It's honest, Marcus replied. And honesty is what we need now, not reassurance. President Morrison turned back to face the room, her expression set with the kind of determination that had carried her through 3 decades of political battles. I'm going to authorize this alliance, she said. God help us all. But I'm going to bet humanity's future on the word of a trade attaché who became an alien prince. The relief in the room was palpable, but Marcus felt no satisfaction. Authorization was only the beginning. Now came the hard part. What do you need from me? He asked. I need you to go back to the Commonwealth and begin immediate implementation of Phase 1, President Morrison replied. Take our best scientists, our top military advisors, our most experienced diplomats. Begin the technology transfer and start planning the joint fleet construction. And Phase 2 will depend on how quickly we can retool our industrial base and how successfully our people adapt to working with alien technology, the president said. But assuming everything goes according to plan, we should be ready to begin ship construction within 6 months. Marcus nodded, already calculating the logistics involved in such a massive undertaking. And Phase 3 will depend on whether we're winning or losing when the time comes to implement it, President Morrison said grimly. If the combined human Commonwealth force can defeat the Corvins quickly, we might be able to maintain some degree of independence. If it becomes a protracted conflict, then humanity and the Commonwealth become permanently intertwined, Marcus finished. Exactly. And that might not be such a bad thing, assuming we survive to see it. The next 48 hours were a blur of activity as Earth's most classified facilities worked around the clock to prepare for humanity's entry into galactic warfare. Research teams analyzed Commonwealth technology with the desperate intensity of people trying to compress decades of development into months. Military planners studied Corvin tactics and Commonwealth strategies, working to develop hybrid approaches that could leverage human advantages while minimizing human weaknesses. Most importantly, volunteers were selected for the first wave of human personnel who would travel to Commonwealth space to begin the integration process. Marcus found himself overwhelmed by the response. When the call went out for volunteers to participate in humanity's first interstellar military alliance, the applications numbered in the millions. Scientists, engineers, military officers, even civilian specialists whose skills might be useful in an alien environment, all volunteering to leave Earth behind for an uncertain future among the stars. I think we underestimated how ready humanity is for this step, Director Harrison observed as they reviewed the volunteer applications. People aren't afraid of the unknown anymore. They're excited by it. That's because they understand what's at stake, Marcus replied. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about becoming something greater than we've ever been. The departure ceremony was held at the same Geneva facility where Marcus had first returned to Earth. Now, instead of a single diplomatic vessel, an entire fleet of Commonwealth ships waited to carry human personnel to their new assignments. President Morrison was there to see them off, along with representatives from every major nation and corporation. The volunteers themselves, nearly 1,000 of Earth's best and brightest, stood ready to begin a journey that would transform not just their own lives, but the future of their species. You carry with you the hopes and dreams of 40 billion human beings, the president told them in her farewell address. You go not as conquerors, but as partners, not as subjects, but as equals. You go to help forge a future where all species can thrive in peace and prosperity. Marcus stood with the other volunteers, wearing the hybrid uniform that combined human military tradition with Commonwealth practicality. The changes in him were more pronounced now, taller, stronger, with an air of authority that seemed to emanate from his very presence. As the ships prepared for departure, he activated the communication device that Princess Lyralii had given him, sending a simple message across the vast distance to the Commonwealth capital. "We're coming," he transmitted. "Humanity is coming." The response came back immediately, carrying with it all the warmth and determination of the young woman who would someday be his wife. "We're waiting," Lyralii replied. "And we're ready." The